What's trending in real estate right now? Walter and I take a look at the 5 biggest real estate trends in our market now.
My name is Walter and this is Damaris, and we're both real estate agents here in Westchester and Bronx County, New York. We're gonna cover the 5 biggest trends as we see them happening in our current market. Damaris, what was your first thought that popped in your head when I asked you what were the biggest trends happening in our market?
Donald Trump. Well, his dropped the rates for the last 6 months. I'm waiting for him to say something stupid. I'm waiting for him to do something crazy so that my rate could go from 6.6 to 6.2.
That was the first thing that popped.
Yes.
Me too, and we'll definitely talk about that down the road. That's definitely one of the top 5. So Damaris, before we get into the trends, what does a trend mean for you?
I say a trend is maybe something that everybody's talking about, or everybody's following, or everybody's interested in learning about.
Yeah, speaking to clients, speaking to other agents, these are the big topics of conversation that happen.
Our lives. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. Our lives.
Right, because you're currently looking to buy a property right now.
So it's a lot.
Okay, cool.
So one of the biggest trends that we see in our market, I would say, is avoiding problem tenants. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, it takes a lot of time to evict somebody once you start that process. 2, there's also a housing shortage all over New York City.
So when you have that problem tenant, even if they want to move out, they're having a hard time finding a place to go to because of the housing shortage.
And then in New York City, it's also a very pro-tenant county.
So the judges know how difficult it is to find housing. So even if everything is correct and you deserve to have your tenant evicted, they're giving the tenants, 4, 5, 6 times that you have to go to court and get in front of a judge to actually get the eviction to go through.
Yeah, I would say I've seen landlords deal with 18 months to 2 years of trying to get somebody out. From their home.
Especially if the tenant is savvy, they know how to work the system. They can delay. And if the judge is not interested in pushing this forward, it could take over 2 years. Another reason why problem tenants have become such a big issue is because the costs involved. An eviction can take anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000 to pay an attorney, plus you could potentially be losing rent for up to 12 or 18 months. So if you think about it, if you're supposed to be getting rent of $2,500 and it takes 12 months to do the eviction, that's a total of $30,000.
Too much. I didn't even know. I wouldn't even do that math.
So because of all of this, the cost involved in having a problem tenant is just too much, and a lot of home buyers are just avoiding problem tenants from the beginning.
So some of the things we've seen landlords do is kind of pay off their tenants.
To move out.
To move out. So help them find the apartment, pay for the security deposit, pay for first month's rent, pay
the broker fee,
kind of cover those costs so that they can get rid of the problem. We see this a lot when homeowners are trying to sell their home with a problem tenant.
How much would you say a home gets devalued when you're trying to sell it with a problem tenant?
Well, you just did the math. For a $2,500 apartment, about $30,000 in lost rent, plus another $6,000 or $5,000, say for attorney fees. You're looking at $35,000. I would say a minimum of $50,000 to $60,000 in value.
Right, because why would you buy that property unless you can get it at a deeper discount than what it's going to cost you to invest to get the tenant out of there? Another big trend that we've noticed is that rent prices are still going through the roof. Rent prices have gone up dramatically over the last 5 or 6 years. So I actually looked back at the numbers. And Damaris, do you know what a 3-bedroom in Yonkers was renting for in 2005? Can you take a guess?
2005?
2005, 20 years ago.
Maybe like $1,500?
$2,000.
Oh, okay.
$2,048. 10 years later, in 2015, what do you think it's renting for?
It was renting for $2,000.
Yeah.
Maybe like $2,500?
$2,573. So it went up about $500.
That actually makes sense.
10 years later, 2025, 3-bedroom in Yonkers, what do you think the average rental is?
$38.39.
$37.39. So in the last 10 years, it went up $1,200. So because of the shortage of inventory, because there's no new houses being built, or very few new constructions being built, the rent prices have just continued to go up.
I also think it has a lot to do with, especially in Westchester, people getting out of the city.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're seeing those, I think rent prices in Manhattan have maybe gone down a little bit. compared to the outskirts like Brooklyn, the Bronx,
Yeah.
Westchester, because of the different style of living.
Absolutely.
So in our market, which I'd say is Bronx and Westchester mostly, a higher rent price means a higher home sales price. So they kind of went up together, right? And a big reason why home sales keep going up is because of inflation.
So when inflation hit the country like 4 or 5 years ago, real estate values were the first thing that shot up. And kind of like you said before.
That was like a little post-COVID, right?
Right.
Like
Well, I mean,
towards the end of everything.
Yeah, home values have consistently gone up for the last 10, 12 years. But right after COVID is when we saw a big jump in home values. So another huge trend that we see is that inventory levels are still remaining very, very low. Now, to discuss inventory levels, I'm going to first explain what the absorption rate is. The absorption rate is a theoretical number. And this is a simple example. Let's say there are 6 houses for sale in Tuckahoe. And every 30 days, one of those houses goes into contract. That means theoretically, in 6 months, we would sell out all of our properties here. And so we have a 6-month absorption rate in Tuckahoe.
So anything below 5 months of absorption rate is considered a seller's market, right? Where the prices are going up and sellers are getting their number. Anything above 6 months is considered a buyer's market, where you'll start to see the prices trend down and buyers are getting their number.
Right.
And anything between 5 and 6 is considered a neutral market.
Right. Where everything is balanced. There's an equal number and prices are not going up and they're not going down. They're kind of remaining level. So I took a look at the inventory levels. For Westchester County, Damaris, would you guess what the absorption rate was?
This is on all properties?
Single family houses.
Single family houses.
Single family houses, Westchester County. Guess.
3 months?
1.8. Right now, single family homes.
2 months? Oh, actually, now that we're talking about it, actually makes sense, because a property comes on the market and
it's gone.
It definitely takes less than 60 days to get it into contract.
Yeah.
As long as it's priced right,
Yeah. So this is something that like the real estate nerds look at all the time. They look at the they look at the absorption rate to see what's happening in the market. But it's a real big thing that inventory levels are still extremely, extremely low.
This is a little off topic, but can you look at the absorption rate on a national level?
I guess you could, but the information is not going to be as useful if you like really fragment it. I'll give you an example. The absorption rate for a single family house in Westchester County is very different than the absorption rate for a 2-bedroom co-op in the Bronx. So if you're selling a 2-bedroom co-op in the Bronx, you want to look at that absorption rate.
So speaking about low inventory, Walter, in April of 2015, when I was in real estate diapers, right? There were 3,083 single-family homes for sale in Westchester County. Last month, which was April of 2025, there were only 920 single-family homes for sale. That's a third of the properties that were on the market.
And that makes a lot of sense when you look at the absorption rate, because it's not that there are more buyers, it's that there's such few houses for sale that the absorption rate is down to less than 2 months supply. Crazy.
Wild.
We just nerded out on some real estate facts right there.
No, you nerded out. You nerded out.
You did too.
I'm still in shock.
Yeah, it is pretty shocking.
That is a shocking number.
You know, because we come in here and we want to do like a lot of transactions, but when we see the market shrink, it's almost like, Jesus, like, how are agents like surviving? You know, it's crazy. All right, let's go on to trend number 4.
So our next trend is interest rate watching, and I'm very excited about this one.
This is getting you excited. Marty's real estate nerd is coming out.
This is exciting because I do this on a daily basis, because Jeff and I are buying another house, right? So we're like at the end tail of everything, and all we really have to do is lock the rate and buy homeowners insurance.
Okay.
Right, in order to close.
So you have not locked in your rate?
I have not locked in my rate. Okay. And as a buyer, I'm looking at it every single day.
Okay.
Right, to see if it goes up, if it comes down, what's happening.
Okay.
Right? I don't want to, as a buyer, you know, a quarter difference of a rate makes a big difference over 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we are. As a seller, you know, sellers are looking at rates because they know that the second rates start going down, their prices can start coming up.
They can ask for more money. Yeah.
Right now, on a 30-year fixed conventional mortgage, we're getting quoted about 6.6, 6.7.
Okay.
Right? And on FHA, it's, I think, as low as like 6.2%.
Okay. So just to give everyone some context, Damaris, what were those numbers like 6 months ago?
About half a percent higher.
They were in the low 7s. So we put this on as a trend because more and more people are asking about and concerned about the interest rate. I mean, in real estate, everyone always looks at the interest rates, but now it's something that I think a majority or more people are doing more than ever.
Like, from experience,
Right.
I'm gonna buy this house.
Right.
The interest rate is not gonna stop us from moving because it's something that we really want to do, right? But we're watching the interest rates to see if we can save
Right.
money down the line.
Because I think for most of our real estate careers, the interest rates has always been like 3-4%. And so there wasn't that much interest in watching what the interest rates were doing. But now it's becoming more and more of a thing.
So our last topic is President Donald Trump. And now this is not a political debate. We're not trying to do any of that. But the reality is that his effects have been polarizing.
Absolutely.
So his supporters really believe in him, and he is doing some things to shake up the market. And the people that don't like him really don't like him.
Exactly.
So Trump, one of the crazy,
You can't say we gotta, no crazy. You can't call him crazy.
well, his crazy shit dropped the rates for the last 6 months. I'm waiting for him to say something stupid. Like, I'm waiting for him to do something crazy so that my rate could go from 6.6 to 6.2.
That's what I learned from our banker, Mike Blatt, that he said that one time. He goes, bad news in the economy is good news for interest rates. So you're waiting for Trump to
do something wild.
Okay.
I'm betting on it.
You're literally betting on it because you haven't locked in your rate.
Right.
Because you're waiting for something crazy to happen the next.
Yeah. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but ask Mike. That's what we're waiting for.
Okay. All right.
Like, tariffs. This is
Okay.
what we're waiting for.
This is me not knowing, but did the tariffs start? Or is he still talking about the tariffs?
No, tariffs started.
Oh, it started already? Okay.
Tariffs started for certain countries.
Okay. So he's doing it country by country.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's coming to agreements with different countries, and they started.
Okay. So that obviously means that eventually it's going to impact inflation. And as we saw before, as soon as inflation goes up, home values are one of the first things that jump up when inflation happens.
So another thing Donald Trump is looking to do is remove undocumented workers, which would naturally bring up the cost of construction. And so if construction goes up, then inventory stays down.
Yeah, inventories will suffer.
And values continue to go up.
Now, objectively speaking, Donald Trump has made things a lot more volatile. And I think that volatility is also causing homeowners not to put their properties on the market. So I don't think he caused low inventory levels to happen, but I think that his effect has continued the low inventory level trend.
I think it's a level of uncertainty.
And when people are uncertain, what do? They don't do
They
anything.
stay put.
They stay put.
Yeah, unless they really, really have to.
And those are a majority of my listings are people that there's no other way but they have to sell.
One of the things that he recently said was that he's going to ban illegal immigrants from being able to purchase homes. Right now, Walter, you can be an immigrant, undocumented.
If you have a credit score and you need 25% down payment, the big banks are lending to you. They're private mortgages. It's called portfolio lending. So these mortgages are not sold back to the U.S. government. And you can buy a property without having any papers, being undocumented.
And how many of those would you say happen a year?
Last year, there were 5,000 to 6,000 mortgages given to undocumented people here in America.
How many sales were there?
About 4 million. So it's, generally speaking, it's not a huge number, but for each of those families, it does mean a lot to buy a house. And now to have that taken away from you, it's like.
And for the sellers too.
For the sellers, it means more buyers, which means more competition, which means higher sales prices.
Yeah, the last client that we had getting that type of mortgage bought in White Plains.
I sent one to Connecticut.
So to be fair, Donald Trump hasn't had an impact on the real estate market yet.
Right.
Right. He's only been in office since January. It's way too soon. Not only that, especially in New York, in Bronx and Westchester counties, everything is a little lagged. So everything is going to move a little slower compared to the rest of the country.
So if you're interested in learning more about what it's like to live here in Westchester, New York, check out the video linked on the screen right now where I cover everything you need to know about what it's like moving to Westchester County, New York.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.